God still leads gracefully. Come on, everybody, take a chance, dance with me. Grab your sister, tell your brother, celebrate life, dancing free. Morning turns to dance when we give the Lord a chance to say, come on, everybody, take a chance, dance with me. Grab your sister, tell your brother, celebrate life, dancing free. Come on, everybody, take a chance, dance with me. Grab your sister, tell your brother, celebrate life. Come on, everybody, take a chance, dance with me. Grab your sister, tell your brother, celebrate life, dancing free. Bread of life, bread of life, come and feed our souls. Bread of life, bread of life, come and make us whole. We are hungry for your mercy, hungry for your peace. We are hungry for your justice, hungry to believe. Bread of life, come and feed our souls. Bread of life, come and make us whole. We are hungry for your presence, manna from above. Bread of life for all creation, fill us with your love. Bread of life.
Testing. If we could have people start to move inside, that would be helpful. If we could have people move inside. Yep. Pastor. Appreciate that. Can we invite you in, or I'm inviting you in? Okay. Move it or lose it. Yep. I'm inviting you to come on inside. I'm inviting you to move inside.
Okay.
We got our retired people that will soon fall asleep. That's what I was told anyway. What?
She said, is this going to be a relief? And I said, I don't know yet.
Yeah. So you want to, let's grab up the kids. That's first on the dock.
Hold on to get in there.
How you doing, sir? I'm having a great day. Absolutely. If I could invite you to move inside, that would be helpful. I got an answer. It was given to me, I don't know.
And it comes apart, right? So different sizes for different bishops?
No, and
Thou art giving. Thou art giving and forgiving, ever blessing, ever blessed. Wellspring of the joy of living, ocean depth of happy rest. Thou art Father, Christ our brother, all who live in love are thine. Teach us how to love each other, lift us to the joy. Teach us how. Teach us how to love each other, lift us to the. Teach us how. Sing it now. Teach I still can't hear you. Teach us how to love each other. Lift us to the. One more time. Teach us how to love each other. Lift us to the joy divine. Sing hallelujah, hallelujah, forever Emmanuel. Sing that back to me. Sing hallelujah, hallelujah, forever Emmanuel, forever Emmanuel. Sing hallelujah, hallelujah, forever Emmanuel. We are not alone. We are not alone. We are not alone. We are not alone. With every breath, through every storm, we are not alone. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah, hallelujah, forever Emmanuel. Sing hallelujah, hallelujah, forever Emmanuel. Fill us with your love. Fill us with your love. With hearts of grace for everyone. Fill us with your love. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah, hallelujah, forever Emmanuel. Sing hallelujah, hallelujah, forever Emmanuel. Lead us to your peace. Lead us to your peace. Lead us to your peace. Where hunger and oppression cease. Lead us to your peace. We sing hallelujah, hallelujah, forever Emmanuel. Sing hallelujah, hallelujah, forever Emmanuel. Sing hallelujah, hallelujah, forever Emmanuel. Sing hallelujah, hallelujah, forever Emmanuel.
Very good. Thank you very much. Can we give a round of applause to Dakota Road? So we're going to change up the order a little bit tonight. First, I'm going to introduce my family, so if they want to start moving toward the top, they sure can. And then I've got friends here that I'm going to introduce. And then we're going to do the recognitions of those that are, no, you don't get one, sweetheart. You have to be old. Really, really old, like Grandpa. Yeah, yeah. Then you can have one. Okay? Yeah. All right. So let me introduce, we'll start from youngest. See if I can get the oldest right. I know who the oldest is. So Carter Zellmer is what, 9 months? Yeah. And son of Mike and Jenna. And Mike is our youngest son. And let's see, 80 would be, is the next one. 80 is being held by Emily Zellmer, who is married to Josh and their other daughter. Leon is in the blue top. Can you wave, Leon? Very good. So then it's, I think it's Elin, yep. And she's the youngest child of Sarah and Alan Johnson. And their other two children are Isabel and Cooper. And then it jumps up to Brixton. and Briggston Nath, and then Christopher, and Parker, and I got Paige, I don't know. I'm getting old. And Kella. And they are the children of John and Christina. And Christina is our oldest child. So of the ancient people that are up here, John is the oldest. So he's officially smashed into 40, and 40 is starting to look in the rearview mirror. So when we started 12 years ago, Kella and Damon, who is not here tonight, Damon lives out in Rapid City. They were the only two that were born at that moment. And Kella was about that age right there. I held her in my arms when we came up to the stage. So the Zellmer family is doing our part for evangelism in the church, you know, so I want you all to keep that up. So they've been a great gift. Hi, beautiful. And I can't tell you how much I love them. So that's it. Oh, yeah, let's take a picture while we're up here. Yeah. We've already been told that certain people are about to hit their bedtime, and I would be one of them, so. Come on, sweetheart. Who's taking pictures? Are we good? I was waiting. I was waiting, you know, see if there would be a little nervousness. So I was going to let them go because I know some of these people need to go. So, yeah. So we've been married for 43 years. She was foolish enough to say yes. As you can, if you talk to her, you'll find out I'm incredibly romantic, like monumentally romantic. Football was why we got together. I blew up a knee, and she was a next door neighbor, and none of the buildings on campus were ADA compliant. They hadn't even thought about that. And all my classes were on the third floor. And so she went and got my classwork as I was recovering from knee surgery, and the rest is history. So football has been a part of our life from the very beginning. So we were at her brother's high school game, and we were coming back from getting coffee, which I paid for. And on the way back, I said, "You want to get married?" And she said, "Sure, that'll be great."
He's not kidding.
Yeah. So, yeah. Then I had to go buy a ring at that point.
Which
so.
I got at football homecoming for college.
Yeah.
So we stuck with the football thing.
Yeah. I'm not. So, all right. So I could not simply do this job without her. And if you want to know what the costs are for this position, you can talk to LaDonna, because we tried to figure out over the 12 years the percentage of travel, and we settled in pretty solidly at about 60% of the time that I've been gone from our home. It kind of goes up and down, but between international travel, meetings in Chicago, which I really did not want to go to, but found out that they were incredibly important, and then just travel in the Synod, it ends up being pretty close to about 60% of the time. So thank you, sweetheart. So we actually send all of our grandchildren to cute school. So do you think that's paying off? Is that working? I think so. All right. So again, I want the community to hear just how important they've been as we have served in South Dakota. They have made 3 moves for calls in South Dakota, first to rural Aberdeen and then to Mitchell. And then to Pierre, our oldest daughter was just delighted to find out that we were moving her 8th grade year. She were just so cheerful. Cheerful would be a word. So, finally, I will just say about Christina, I love her dearly, but when she was still complaining when she moved into her senior year, I said, fine, move back to Mitchell. I'm tired of listening. She went, well, I don't want to move back to Mitchell. What goes around, babe, comes around. I know. Hey, I know I'm naughty, aren't I? Yeah. You'd think they would be way nicer to me, don't you think? So we have a number of people that are going to be retiring or are retired. And I would invite, if you know that you're retiring, you should please come forward at this point, and we will start down through the list. So Pastor Keith and his wife could come forward, and Pastor Bob Hansen. We're just going to have you all line up. And let's see, Deacon Suzanne Hansen and Pastor Quinn Sanderson. I haven't seen, you are here. All right. Well, Pastor Keith and his bride are another transplant from North Dakota. We got them down here a while back, and you have served on the west side of the state and on the east side of the state. And it's been a delight to have you here in South Dakota.
It's been a good time.
All righty. Congratulations. Do we have someone taking pictures? Now, Sawyer's coming. So Suzanne, I'll let you take that. And Keith, we'll let you have that. And we do have. All right. So if we can look at the photographer right here. Are we good? All right. Quinn? Since you're next in line, be right there. Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. All right, Pastor Bob. Bob has been serving in two ways over the last many years. First as an intentional interim, and truthfully has been a gift in that role, where we have been able to place him in congregations across South Dakota where he's been doing really effective work. And then we invited him into the role of being the person that was in charge of our campaign. And as pastors and council presidents found out across the Synod, he would be determined that, and I give you much credit for the success of the campaign. I really appreciate your work. And as you heard earlier today, Suzanne has just been stalwart in working with young people. And she has been known to remind people that you should care about teenagers. Maybe once, like since I've known you. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, guys. All right. The 25th anniversaries, Pastor Dennis Bossman and Deacon Jody Hansen. Dennis is still serving. In fact, you're doing an interim down at Springdale, right? And you are still working. Yeah, very good. So you've got to be one of the first aims, I would think, right? Didn't you start out as an aim?
1994.
Yeah, 1994. So, thank you both for your service. Appreciate it. And then we jump up to 50, and it's a little daunting since when I got here 38 years ago, all of you were really young. So, wow. So if we could have the Goldhammers, and if we could have the Olsons, and also the Westgards up here. Truth be told, Pastor Al was just down the road as I started 38 years ago at Redfield, and Will Olson, if I don't remember where you were serving, because we weren't in the same conference.
St. John's meet or
Yeah.
elsewhere?
Well, 38 years ago.
30 years ago I was in Montana.
Oh, well, that's why I don't remember. And Pastor Gary Westgard has been a gift and a poet, and deep appreciation to all three of you for your work, both through the decades and currently, and how you've impacted and continue to impact congregations across South Dakota. Appreciate it. Congratulations. You did good. So we have 155, Arlie Fadness made it all the way across the state. What? Oh, you do? I didn't know that. And I've been told that as he was driving here, he wrote another book. It was amazing how you could do that. So you've been a great teacher and a great pastor that has served this church very well. And I appreciate you and your anniversary. Thank you. So now we're getting serious about this. 60 years. So we have Pastor Larry Dahlstrom, and then we have Pastor Don Gorder, and we have Pastor Leroy Nevin, and Pastor Jim Tevet. And if you would come up with your brides, that would be wonderful. Hey, congratulations. Yeah. So when I was a very young pastor, here was somebody growing a church out in Rapid City, and Connie was making music, and you were preaching, and it was an amazing experience out there, right? And please do not talk to Don Gorder about my cooking, but he had to suffer through me cooking on Thursday night in Minot. My dad was a CPE supervisor, and we had pastors from Western North Dakota that would come, and every Thursday, be quiet. And every Thursday night, Mom and Dad would feed the pastors at our house. And so when I turned around 11, 12, Dad said, it's time for you to learn how to cook. So, sorry. And Pastor Leroy, we thank both of you for your years of service and for all that you've done for the church.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Pastor Jim Tevet and your bride. Great to have you here, and you're still preaching.
Yep.
And still working, and we're trying to get something done there so we can give you a little time off. So appreciate your work as well. Thank you all very much. And now if Pastor Jim Kristofferson would come forward. Is he still here? So Pastor Jim is celebrating 65 years. Can you imagine? You bet. So to put that in perspective, he was ordained the year I was born. So thank you very much, and Dorothy, appreciate your work. How about if we give them both a round of applause? So if you start doing math, you start adding up all the years of service, you've got a number, right? And when I think about the sermon I preached this morning, I think about these individuals, these men and women that were a part of the communities that produced not only me, but also all of you. And just how much work it takes to be church over the decades. And I hope what you experience in these anniversaries is that recognition of the work that has been done and the sacrifices that have been made and how the gospel has been proclaimed in so many places through the decades. So I really truthfully give thanks for all the individuals that have been up here tonight. So thanks for your ministry. Oh, I could do that. Yeah, we could do that next. Oh, sorry. If you haven't figured out, we occasionally just make stuff up. So if you haven't noticed, we've got 4 other bishops here along with their spouses. 2 of them are classmates of mine. And as you know, I do like to brag, but the class of 1981 from Luther Seminary has produced more bishops than any other class in the country. Right? Yeah. So there are 5 of us from the class of 1981, and 3 of us are here tonight. Pastor Larry Woolrobbie, who serves up in northwest Minnesota, and his wife Joy, and then Pastor Bishop Ann Svenningson, and her husband Bill Russell. Where's Bill at? Where's Bill at? Oh, way in the back. Okay. Have you guys thought about marriage counseling? I mean, okay. We really have known each other a long time. I would not normally tease people like that. So we all started in the fall of 1977. I think we were the largest class that Luther Seminary ever produced. I will put it in perspective. I think there was 155 of us with an MDiv, and that was more than all the seminaries made ready this year by quite a bit. So life has changed. So then we also have our preacher for tomorrow, Bishop Mark Niram, who serves in western North Dakota, and his wife. Do you want to not stand? Jan. And then we have the guy that I still call, in fact, I just called not very long ago, he's my mentor, John Anderson, who serves as bishop in southwest Minnesota, and his wife, Robin. So it's great to have all of them here. Now,
thank you, Bishop. Well, Bishop, the last 12 years have been a journey and an adventure. And you kind of stole my thunder because I was going to do a little walk through the last 12 years, at least some notes that I had taken, and you talked about most of them. So I think I'm still going to mention them anyway. And Sawyer has a couple of pictures that we're going to show also, so we can see how I think that's the most recent picture of your leaving the office picture. and one other from something. Maybe a Synod Assembly. Do you think? Is that the 500th anniversary? So celebrating the Reformation. And that was one of the things on my list of the celebrations or the things that have happened with the last 12 years of Bishop Zellmer's tenure is celebrating the Reformation, the 500th Reformation of the Lutheran Church, and having a wonderful event in the arena. So just some highlights of the past 12 years, and again, you talked about some of those. So early in your tenure, you didn't talk about this, and I'll just say one statement. You led us through a very difficult time. Enough said about that. If you want to know more, we can talk later. And you mentioned our companion synods of Cameroon and Nicaragua. Another thing is with Cameroon during your tenure, as I was looking through things, 66 roofs were put on churches in Cameroon through your leadership. You talked about your advocacy work for farmers and for rural life and rural ministry on Capitol Hill, but you also advocated in Pierre, and you've also advocated through the leadership of the ELCA, having Bishop Eaton out after the storm or the blizzard in the Black Hills that killed hundreds of cattle and other folks from the ELCA, as showing them about rural ministry and how we can advocate for life in South Dakota or in the Dakotas. So thank you for your work. You've presided and led church plantings and church closures. And we know that you've mentioned this one before, and not that you're competitive or anything, but which synod happened to have for 4 consecutive times the most youth at the National Youth Gathering? South Dakota. Not that he challenged people to kind of get their youth there or anything or whatever, but thank you. You led our strategic planning and the development of our mission statement that all may be fed, and that is looking both spiritually and physically. And as I was looking back on things, I think physically was kind of one of your things because there's a lot of food deals that you did. So we had pie with the bishop. We had chili with the bishop. We had burgers with the bishop. And then I know that you hosted yearly gatherings or more frequent gatherings with the retired rostered leaders. And I think those all revolved around coffee and cookies or cake or pie or something. So all of those were very good opportunities for Bishop Dave to share with us and have a communication pathway both for him to share information with us, but also for him to get feedback from us as members of the Synod. You also, as you mentioned, have a great commitment to ensuring that we have well-prepared, rostered, and lay leaders moving into the future. So you talked about Kairos and a new way for people to learn and go through the seminary process. We've increased the amount of seminary scholarships that are awarded to people that are in seminary, increased the amount of seminary debt reduction that is able to be provided to folks after they graduate and come to serve in South Dakota. And as he also stated, that we have the Seminary Loan Refinancing Program, which is a new program that's been developed to help people better manage their debt. And the Listen God is Calling appeal has also been mentioned, which raised money for 3 different things: leaders, mission, and our partners with the ELCA and Luther Seminary. And all of those are bearing fruit and profiting from the appeal that Bishop Dave led, along with Pastor Bob. So I think that was my list. So thank you for your service with us, Bishop Dave. There are many other things that you've led and that you've championed, and so you are leaving a lasting legacy on the Synod of South Dakota. I know that people have been signing, but there is a book out in the gathering area with some pictures of Bishop Dave's tenure on these last 12 years. And so if you haven't, I would encourage you to take an opportunity to sign or share some memories in that book so that Bishop Dave can have that as a remembrance of his time with us also. So, as Bishop Dave mentioned, we have a couple of bishops here that are celebrating with us, and so I'd like to ask Bishop John Anderson, as Bishop Dave said, Bishop John, Bishop John has served as Bishop Dave's mentor for the last 12 years, and so Bishop John.
Thanks. Well, I'm thankful to be able to be with you tonight to celebrate this chapter in your synod's life of David's leadership as your bishop. I've been grateful to call him my mentee first, I suppose. But actually, I call him my friend, and he actually has been my mentor as well. So we got to say that as well, I think. So I want to bring you greetings from the Southwestern Minnesota Synod. Your sisters and brothers in Christ are praying for you over there. We're mindful of the importance of this gathering. I also bring you greetings from our presiding Bishop, Elizabeth Eaton. She likes to call this gentleman Big Dave. So I know that she'd want me to greet you, so I'm happy to do that. I was thinking that we could have fun. I had the privilege of roasting him at the Conference of Bishop meeting, and there are a bunch of stories I won't tell here. How's that? But I was thinking if you do have a great Zellmer-ism, you know, some of these phrases that you've heard your bishop use through the years, you might want to just put it on a recipe card and mail it to him. One of my favorites is he doesn't know boo sickum. So for like 12 years, I'm like, what does boo sickum mean? And I finally looked it up, but I'll just leave you hanging right there. How's that? And I won't take you into other ones that maybe I shouldn't share. But I did think about the fact that how could I organize my presentation? So I thought about, there are lots of different lists of the 4 marks of the church, but one of them is about God calls us to be a community of faith that builds community. The word is koinonia. God calls us to be people who proclaim the good news, kerygma in Greek. God calls us to be a community of people that teach the faith, didache. And God calls us to be a community of faith that serves, diakonia. So I'm just going to tell one little snapshot on each of these about your bishop that you may or may not know. So one of the things that the bishops that are with me tonight know is that for years, Dave created community in our midst because he would set up our meals that we go to. And actually, he took great joy in developing community among us and finding great restaurants. And I don't know if you've ever experienced the experience of having your bishop tell a story to create community. Anybody had that happen? And you know how restrained he is about not exaggerating, right? Yeah? But we love to tell stories with each other, and Dave was a great storyteller. I just love to hear his voice telling stories. But this gift of calling people together in community is one of the gifts God gave your bishop, and I'm thankful that I experienced that gift and watched him doing that with lots of different groups. So, koinonia. The next one is kerygma. Well, I don't have to say a lot about this today because basically Dave said exactly what I was going to say about your bishop, is you have a bishop who proclaims the theology of the cross and is bold about moving forward our Lutheran living tradition in the present. He doesn't see the Lutheran tradition to be about the past. He sees it to be about our voice that we bring to the whole of the Christian community. So I'm grateful that God made you a teacher and a theologian and a preacher. And I give thanks to God for how God used you in that way. The next one is didache. So one of the things I think that's very impressive and I'm grateful for in your bishop is that Dave would go to Cameroon and teach for a week. And I was always jealous of him because my companion synod, we don't need that gift for me to use that part of my gift, but I was grateful you could. And then he would gather with people out in the Black Hills for a week and teach. So this gift of passing on the faith has been something that God has used David to do in your community, and I'm grateful for that gift that God gave to you. And each of these gifts, of course, are gifts you're called to carry and remember as well as you live out your faith life. Now, diakonia, I was trying to think of what I should talk about. I hear rumors that Dave used to give airplane rides to people who needed it before he became a bishop. I don't know if he did much of that during the bishop time. Yeah. In any case, I don't know if you know that your bishop has been one of the most skillful people in the political realm that I've encountered in my 16 years of being bishop. This is a man who knows politicians, knows how to relate to politicians, and when he wants to advocate for those who have less or who are vulnerable, who is fearless in his advocacy and his political work, which is a form of service that actually we, at least in Southwest Minnesota, we have a lot to learn about how the church might step into the public sphere and speak a word on behalf of our neighbors. So I watched with great appreciation when your bishop spoke to protect the rights of transgender people in your midst. And I was proud to call him a colleague. And I was proud when your bishop provoked the beginning of having interfaith visits to the Capitol to create space and room for our new neighbors who have come from other faiths or who have no faith. So I'm grateful for that gift that you share in many different ways. Am I making you feel kind of uncomfortable because I'm saying too many nice things? And we'll probably pick on you more than I am. So anyway, I'm mindful that this staff that has served with your bishop also needs to be thanked tonight. So if you've served in the past or in the present on the staff of the South Dakota Synod during Dave's watch, would you stand? Because we want to say to you, we give thanks to God for you and the ways you've made a difference. And then, kids and grandkids, Dave loves you. We've heard so many stories about you all, I feel like we know you. And LaDonna, for Pete's sake, you've walked with him and given up parts of your life to serve the gospel. So I wanted to say to all of y'all that I just want on behalf of the church, I know there have been times that David has come home and he's been grumpy or tired or needed to be gone. And it's cost you something to have your grandpa or your dad or your husband serve in this way. So we want to give you a hand and say thank you for all of your sacrifice to support David as he's lived out this calling. Now, I've heard so many stories from David, I was just trying to pick the right one to tell. But I'll tell a cool one. So I grew up on a dairy farm, and David tells a story about his grandpa, who was a farmer, and I love this story, and if he'd tell it, it would take at least 15 minutes. So you should ask him to tell it, because it's just so doggone gorgeous, and I've heard him tell it a few times. But when David was a young man, I think maybe 11 or 12, his grandpa came into his bedroom. He was at the farm. His grandpa came into the bedroom in the middle of the night and said, "Get up, boy." And David was kind of disoriented, and David got up, and he said, "Let's go, and don't talk." So they went out, and they got in the pickup, and they drove out into the fields. It was a hot July night. And then they got out of the car, and they walked out into the cornfield, about 25 yards, if I'm remembering the story right. And then his grandpa said, "Lay down." And Dave said, all I could think about was the story of Abraham and Isaac, right? So they laid down, and his grandpa laid down head to head with David. And then he said, "Just be quiet." And then the field starts to sound like popcorn is popping around them. And then his grandpa said, "Listen to that. That's God creating corn." And David tells all of this a lot sweeter and better, and I'm going to stop there instead of making up stuff I can't remember. But I love that his grandpa saw the presence of our creating God at work in his life and wanted his grandson to hear it and plant that deep in his heart and mind. And I'm sure that that piety that he planted in you, as well as David's dad was a colleague of mine in Texas. I knew Bruce. I know that I'm thankful for all of the things God has done in his life, and I want you to remember that God is growing you and growing this synod, and may God bless you all.
Thank you, Bishop John. We've also invited Bishop Ann to share some thoughts or memories about Bishop Dave.
When I was asked to do this, I wasn't told I would follow immediately after Bishop John Anderson. So we each bring our perspectives. Let me tell you a little bit about David and myself. When David was growing up along Highway 2 in Minot, North Dakota, I was growing up along Highway 2, 500 miles straight west in Shelby, Montana. Though we didn't meet until our first year of seminary and didn't really become closely acquainted until we were bishops, I've long felt this sort of old soul connection with David, both of us children of the Western Plains. And one of the first things you learn about Dave Zellmer is how he loves the Western Plains. More specifically, how much he loves the state of South Dakota. There is not a bishop of the 65 in the ELCA who doesn't know exactly what state Bishop Zellmer serves in. And he seems to know the geography like the back of his hand. You can't stump him, even if you were to ask if he knew where Gayville or Hillview or Bonesteel, is there really a town named Bonesteel, are? And as Bishop John mentioned, even more impressive, Dave Zellmer personally knows more state politicians than anyone I've ever met. So maybe when this gig is over, you could either run for governor or maybe participate in becoming the next Miss South Dakota, Mr. South Dakota. It's a thought. You would lose. I mean, you're really great at a lot of things, but you might lose at that. Yes, Dave Zellmer loves this state, and he loves this synod. You should hear him advocate for pastors to come and serve in this synod. You have so much to celebrate in the funds that you have raised for scholarships, for debt relief to first call pastors, for developing leadership schools to prepare the very best senior pastors. He loves this synod, he loves this state, and David Zellmer loves people. He loves just to be with people, whether he's flying a plane or hunting pheasants or looking for a good bottle of wine. And he knows his wine. You know Dave's mostly thinking about how he can share that experience with other people. His grandkids, well, not the bottle of wine, but that riding on the plane. I've seen a picture of you riding in a plane with Grandpa. His kids, his colleagues, his friends, he wants to be with others, and you can tell he wants to bring joy to our lives. We're so grateful, Dave and LaDonna, for the way that you welcomed Bill and me into the Conference of Bishops. Not always an easy place to enter as a first-time bishop. You were sort of the welcoming party, I think. Party goes well with you. Just hearing LaDonna's laugh fill up a room is enough to make you feel at home. And also, LaDonna, when you're around, we can be sure that David won't get too far out of line. Thank you. David loves South Dakota. He loves bringing joy to people. He loves working with people. And of course, he loves the gospel. He's passionate about making sure this church proclaims the gospel of Jesus Christ. We live in a culture where that word gospel just gets thrown around until it almost becomes meaningless. And especially in popular Christianity in this country, the gospel is sometimes collapsed into a moral teaching or an ethical position. But that isn't gospel. The law is not the gospel. And like Luther, Dave knows that if we confuse law and gospel, you can bet that it's the gospel that will get lost. So Dave Zellmer proclaims that gospel with everything he has. That justification by faith, first and chief article. My husband made me say that part. Justification by faith. He wrote something on the small called articles, my husband did, so he's kind of wants to be part of this. Anyway. David proclaims that good news with everything he has. Oh, sometimes it will take a long and winding story to get to the gospel word. Usually it has some humor as well. But you know the gospel will be there at the end. And you will know that Dave so cares for this church that it continue to proclaim the good news. So even though your calling as a bishop is coming to a close, we're still very excited to see how God will use your wonderful gifts of love for a place, love for a people, and a passion for the gospel, how God will use you and these incredible gifts in this next chapter of your baptismal calling. So here's to my friend and our colleague in the ministry of the gospel, David Zellmer.
Thank you, Bishop Ann. I hid some things over here, and now I realize it's a long ways away from where I was standing. So first off, as has been mentioned before, the family, and certainly LaDonna, is a big part of Bishop's serving as bishop and his ability to serve us well. And so just a very small token, LaDonna, for you. And if you'll join me in recognizing her. So the executive committee spent many long hours in thoughtful discussion. What type of farewell, parting, thank you gift would you get for a person like Bishop Dave? And as I said, we pondered, and we pondered, and we pondered some more. And we thought, well, what is his passion? What is reflective of his ministry? What are his passions? What are his hobbies? And so the first thing we thought of was, actually the things we thought of, Bishop Ann mentioned. So we thought of flying. We certainly know that flying is a passion. So we got something related to flying. I have to make sure, yes. Okay, Bishop, you can see if we got it right this first time. A jet. Okay, so maybe that's not quite right. I mean, I think you'd probably like a jet. I don't know anything about jets, but it looks like it's pretty cool. Okay, so flying, we knew that that was a really cool deal, but maybe not quite the right thing. So then we thought about hunting and firearms and guns and things that go bang or that shoot things. So this was our next choice. Again, took many hours of discussion. There's something else in there that goes with it.
Oh, it's a potato gun. And a potato.
I've never used one of those, but it looks really cool. See? Are they cool? Okay. Okay, so obviously not the right gift either, right? Okay. So we went back to the drawing board again. As Bishop Ann mentioned also, it's just quite coincidental. This must be your three things, your three passions. So she mentioned your love for fine wine. So that was our next thought. And we all know that he's quite a connoisseur of wine. And $2.99 on the end cap at Hy-Vee. We only want the best for you, Bishop Zellmer. We had to talk long and hard. We almost thought about a case, but we decided one bottle was enough. Okay, so then we thought, still don't quite have it right. And so what else is Bishop's passion? What else does he like? What might he enjoy doing after he's done serving as bishop? And I think this fourth time is probably the charm. And Eric, where are you? Because he's going to provide or bring out what our fourth gift is. Oh, he has to go get it. He had a different hiding place than mine. So Bishop, what's one of your other passions? Riding a bicycle. So this is a custom bicycle that's been designed for Bishop Dave. So Bishop, thank you for your years of service and your ministry with us, your leadership, and now it's your turn.
Right. Well, thank you so much for the wine.
You're welcome.
And I'll be able to give our guest from Florida a ride in the airplane. I mean, we'll be crowded. Potato guns, I cannot believe you did that. Because in Pierce, South Dakota, we were aficionados of potato cannons. And it's an art form, just saying. And so I like hanging out with engineers, and we decided that we would see if we could produce a potato mortar that would launch a melon all the way across the Missouri River. And then we actually built it, and we did shoot it once from quite a ways away. And then we went back and did the math on what we found out. Maybe we should check the pressures. We decided not to do that anymore because we all wanted to live. So I do like riding bikes. I built two, and this will certainly join the crew, and we'll be able to actually sell one now. But these bikes are just unbelievable, and they just are brand new. It's a new design that just started 3 years ago, and they've kind of taken the market by storm because you can ride them on anything, gravel, crushed limestone, and out on the street. So thank you so much. Unbelievable. So let me say thanks to my mentor. You were a lot nicer here than you were in Chicago. I mean, quite a bit nicer, I'm just saying. And Ann, very appreciative of your comments, both to myself and LaDonna. So it's been a joy. I didn't say anything about, as my mentors used to call them, red-faced meetings or the Great Disturbance. It was an incredibly difficult time for the church. And you should know that how deeply appreciative I am of the people that were serving in this office that walked with me and alongside of me. We did learn after a while as we got into it, when we were solidly into 2010, that most of us were up very late at night and normally driving. And we started very carefully starting to call people at 11 p.m. or midnight and finding out that, yep, they were returning home from a meeting. And to be able to decompress and have conversation with people that were working through the same kind of work was just, well, life-saving, I'll put it that way. And so I know I personally would have quit long before we had gotten through that without their assistance and their support. So again, you should hear that. The one group that I have not said anything about or to have been the people that have supported my flying. As you might imagine, when I met with the executive committee 12 years ago, the initial answer was, no, you will not fly the plane. That was the very first response. There is risk involved in it. I tried to lay out my credentials of what I had learned and what kind of licensing and training I'd had, and that wasn't working very well. And Pastor Craig Belkey, who was our Region 3 coordinator, said, no, you need to understand, he's like a real pilot. And they've had a real ministry in Pierre, and he should be able to do this. And they changed their mind, not because of me, but because of Mr. Belkey. But then because we were moving, I didn't want to move, and the executive committee demanded that I move. Not that I'm bitter about that, but still kind of bring it up a little bit. No. I liked Pierre, so anyway, I digressed. But there have been some individuals, a farmer down in Nebraska that we have gotten to be friends with through the decades. Every year he sends a very large check. A friend of mine who thinks flying saves time, and he's right, donates a very large check every year. And one of my Jewish friends has been very supportive in keeping me in the air. So there has been no money from the Synod budget that has turned a propeller through my 12 years. And without their support, financial support, that would not have been able to happen. And so those individuals, I'm not going to name them, have met all the difference in my work and being able to utilize the airplane through the years. And somebody I can mention is Pete Haig, because Pete and I have been in the airplane business now for 11 of my 12 years. And without his invitation to be in his airplanes, so he bought really nice airplanes and let me fly them, which is not a bad deal. Again, it would not have been able to happen. Pete and his wife are great members down at First Lutheran Church. And truthfully, without their participation, this wouldn't have worked at all. So you've already heard all the stuff, all the thank yous. Again, thanks for being here tonight, and thank you for this privilege of serving in this role. Since I have grown tired of answering the question, I feel like I'm 18 years old and graduating from high school. I don't know what I'm going to do, except that on September 1st, I will be south of Gregory, and I will be with two friends that are now 82 and 83, and we will be in Barca loungers that have been designed to hunt doves out of. And you can actually recline on a swivel. That's what happens when you have friends that are engineers. I mean, it's just perfect. It's like, the only way it would be better is if someone brought coffee out to us, Anyway, spending time with my children, with my wife and grandkids, and we're gonna have some fun. And when we get to 2020, we'll start to figure out what I'm gonna do next. So thanks for the blessing.
Thank you, Bishop Dave. And please again, join me in thanking Bishop Dave.
What? And I believe we got a song to...
Oh, and I have announcements. What would be a day without ending with announcements? I have to see what they are. So, a reminder, your voting devices, you're responsible overnight. And yes, I'll leave it at that. Don't forget about the Mission Prayer Breakfast tomorrow. It'll be at 7 o'clock in the gathering space. And Denise, our visitor from the Cameroon, will be sharing about our companion synod in the Cameroon. And also a reminder for rostered leaders that there are photos over here in the corner, and if you have not had your picture taken yet, Please plan to do that tomorrow in the corner for the online directory. And now I think that looks like that's the end of the announcements. And so I don't know if Bishop Norm is still here to lead us. Oh, here he is. Bishop Norm will lead us in a closing prayer, and then Dakota Road will sing us out.
I need to make a couple of comments first. I knew Dave's parents when I was in college. Hadn't seen them for some time, and we started catching up, and we talked about our kids. Oh yeah, we have 4. We have 3 boys and a girl. Yeah, we do too. And then we listed the names, and they had picked the same 4 names as we had. Except in a couple cases it was second name instead of the first name. The other thing that I remember is a phone call that I got from his dad. I was on the staff at the seminary, and Bruce Zellmer called and said, "I've got a son who is poor as a church mouse, and he wants to go to the seminary. Is there any chance that you might help him out with a job or place to stay or whatever?" So that was another contact. When I've finished here, Dave said now our roles are reversed, and I was supposed to find some places to hunt like he had been doing for years, but we've hunted together for every year since I think 1981 or 82 when you came. So I could add to the accolades, but you know, I'm from the Midwest, and there you do not use superlatives. So I would say, Dave, you've been pretty good. You aren't half bad. You could be worse. Well, I just didn't want all of this to go to your head, you know. Well, I was thinking about the fact that if we close with a prayer, we usually ask. This is a time to thank. And the great part of it is that we in the church know who to thank. Just think, what if we were a gathering of atheists and didn't know who to thank for all that we're grateful for? But we know who to thank, and we're going to end with the prayer of the psalmist. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits. Amen.
Amen. Would you join us in singing our closing song, Go Now. Go now, go now, go now with God. Go now, go now, go now with God. And starts the same way again. Go now, a little different. Go now with God. Just the ending is different. Try it. Go now with God. We might sing it in Spanish, remembering our brothers and sisters in Christ who are giving thanks this evening as well. Vamos con Dios. Say it once. Vamos con Dios. Sing it. Vamos, vamos, vamos con Dios. Vamos, vamos, vamos con Dios. I'll sing verse 1 in Spanish. You'll see the English word translation. lleno del Espíritu Santo. Vamos con Dios, entrando al mundo para servir. Vamos con Dios, vamos, 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 vamos con Dios. Vamos, vamos, vamos con, offering a hand to a stranger, offering a hand to a stranger. Go now with God, go now with God, trusting in the risen Savior. Go now with God, go now with God, go now, go now. Go now with God. Go now, go now, go now with God. Waters of mercy have found us. Go now with God, go now with God. Grace on the journey surrounds us. Go now with God, go now. Vamos, 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 vamos con Dios. Vamos, vamos, vamos con Dios. Crossing every boundary, every nation. Go now with God, go now with God. Dancing in the gift of liberation. Go now